Hey, this is Hans from Dakota Angler and Outfitter. In this video we're going to tie a quick little minnow pattern, and it's a great template. You can use lots of different materials to tie a fly like this, kind of inspired by a Thundercreek, or kind of looks like a little surf candy as well, but I started tying this for smallmouth and walleye. Just wanted a little fry imitation, and this is a fly that I tied back in 2012, and then I just found one of the flies that I had tied back then, so I decided I'd bring it back and tie it with some new materials and just tie it again, because I'd kind of forgotten about it. But I've got a 6X streamer hook, or a 4X streamer hook rather, in the vise. This is a Gamakatsu, and straight eye. And I put a little super glue down. I'm using monofilament thread, and that just helps the thread to really adhere to the hook shank, and gives you just a little more durable fly. So now everything in this fly we're going to tie in kind of forward and fold back. So I've got some super hair in chartreuse. And again, this is a template. You could use bucktail, you could use any number of winging materials for this. Just mess around, find a fly that, or a material that you like for this fly. The super hair is nice. It doesn't have a lot of movement, but has nice translucence, and kind of did what I needed it to do for this fly. So I've got the chartreuse on top. Again, you can mess around with the colors too. I'm going to tie white on the bottom. Just trying to make sure you get that centered over the bottom of the hook. Okay, so now we've got our white and our chartreuse. Now I'm going to take a piece of lateral scale. I'm going to tie that along the side of the hook. I'm going to put a piece of lateral scale on the other side of the hook as well. Okay, so now we have our materials all facing forward. I'm going to add one last thing, or actually a couple things here. I'm going to do some flash. It's going to go out into the tail. So this one I'm actually not tying backwards. This is a polar flash, kind of a pearlescent polar flash. I'm going to tie that along and back, just about even with the barb. Well, maybe not quite the barb. So now we got that. Okay. You could just do that. I do want a little bit of pearlescence in the body when it gets finished. So I'm going to take some tinsel. This is ice blue tinsel. I'm going to tie that in up front. It's not totally necessary, but now I'm going to bring my, you could skip this, but I think it adds just a little more pearlescence to the fly. I'm going to bring my tinsel up. Start wrapping, and just get a coat of tinsel. Oops. I lost a strand. We'll start over. I'm using small, so I tied in 2 strands. You probably could get away with medium or large here. It's just enough to add. We're going to cover this whole thing in UV resin. So when this gets covered, oops, and it was a little short. So, I'm going to sneak back, just catch that with my thread. There we go. Then I can sneak in a couple more wraps of this one. Some days tying around a camera is easier than others. Trim that out. Okay, so now we're ready. Kind of work on the rest of the fly here. It's pretty straightforward. We're going to take our chartreuse, or whatever color is your top color. Try to get just those. Make sure you get them all. Get them all nice and even and tight. Fold those back and tie them in right by the tail. And then you can do this in a couple different ways. I'll just do it since it's here. I'm going to bring the lateral scale right along the side, tie that down. Bring the lateral scale along the other side, tie that down. And then I can bring my white nice and tight, tie that down, and then I'm going to even it up around the hook point. Every once in a while you get a fiber that wants to be kind of loose. And you want that tight so it doesn't ruin your epoxy job. So we'll have to go tighten that guy up here if we can. Just pull it back and catch him. There we go. Alright, so now we got our lateral scale along the side. We got everything kind of even and nice. We'll just whip finish back here. I'm going to trim that out. Okay. So now we'll add some eyes. And you could use living eyes or just from Flyman, or I'm just going to use some 3D eyes from Hairline. Put a little bit of gel super glue. Add one. Add your other, just make sure they're kind of lined up. Okay. Now we can do our UV resin. And you can do a few different things. I was messing around with putting a little bit of fluorescing fly finish from Loon on the belly of the fly to give it even more that kind of like pearlescent fluorescing. You just need a thin coat of that on the belly. Hit that. Okay. And then I'm going to take a little bit of thin solar res. Just put that on the top of the fly. Hit it really quick. And then for a little bit of bulk, and you can coat this as much or as little as you like. But I'm going to take my medium solar res. We're going to work that all the way around the fly so it's completely coated. Eyes and everything. Here's where those translucent materials really shine, because they just go completely translucent. You want to get it nice and even around the eyes. And then just spin it a little bit so everything kind of flows. Sometimes it takes a couple of coats and you miss a spot. hit that real quick. You can see that pearlescent on the bottom. Sometimes if I feel like I need a little extra, I mean, that's going to fish just fine. You could go in and fill in with a little bit of thinner resin. I doubt the fish care that much, but just kind of find some of those spots that didn't quite get filled in. Just spin it again a little bit before you cure it. There we go. And then, so I've got a fairly long tail. Usually on this fly, even though it didn't have a lot of movement, I was just trying to get that nice kind of look of a small fry. So I cut it pretty short. You don't have to leave it that short, again, too, if you're using different materials for different looks, or, you know, you can even put I've tied some of these where I did a marabou tail on the back of the fly. It looks a little short, but that's about what the original was. And I just wanted something that kind of mimicked. Actually, I had seen a guy using little Gulp minnows that were chartreuse and white, and he was catching a bunch of smallmouth and walleye. So I wanted something that had that small profile. And sometimes you don't always need a big fly, and it worked very well. I caught walleyes, smallies, and it was a fun little fly. But again, it's kind of a template, so you can use, you know, bucktail like a Thundercreek, or you could mess around with softer materials and leave the tail a little longer, or, you know, do the body the same way but have a, you know, craft fur polar fiber tail that really moves a bit more. So anyway, just kind of a fun little journey for me, since I found a fly that I'd completely forgotten about laying on my workbench in my garage, and thought I'd bring it back to life with some UV resin and share it with everybody. Thanks for watching.